All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Elena of Elena Reads, and today I'm here with Jesse Gatewood. He is an author of Lewis and Lily, the book right here. And I met him at the Clinton Library. Me and my family were on a vacation to Arkansas, and we stopped by the bookstore, and he came in and he pointed out his book. And I was excited because I enjoy meeting authors. And so I got the book signed, and he was kind enough to agree to an interview. So I'm very excited to be talking with him today. So, Mr. Gatewood, could you tell me how you became a volunteer for the Clinton Library?
I can do that. And I tell you, that's a president of the United States. And when you have an opportunity to volunteer at a presidential library, you jump at it. And so, yes, I did. I was interviewed by two. In fact, I had two interviews by the director of the volunteers, and then she asked me to come back to be interviewed by the educational person. She thought that that was pretty interesting and what I was telling them about myself and what I had done.
Mm.
But volunteer at the presidential library is one of the great joys that I've had. I've had many joys, and this ranked pretty high.
Yeah, I could see that. So have you ever met the president?
Oh yeah, I've met him several times. I have photos with him. Now, of course, I met him when he was my governor as well.
That's so cool.
That was governor, but now because my son and his daughter Chelsea, my son Marcus, they were classmates at Horseman Junior High School.
Very interesting. So, how were you chosen to become the volunteer of the year? And what was that experience like?
Oh wow! Let me just jump to the euphoria. I could tell that she was talking about me midway through her introduction, and I just knew it. I said, "Man, is this is this it? 18 years, and I became. I'm going to become volunteer of the year." And when she, when Ann Camp called my name, I just sat there for a moment. I sat in suspension. Uh, I can't believe it. Is it really true? I am the volunteer of the year. Now, how that came about, I know she has a committee, and there are several things they look at. Probably the characteristic, how I meet people. Like you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, I just saw you all, and I just started talking, and then you all talk back, especially you, uh, Elena. I think that you're a little precocious. You're not a typical teenager. You in the adult stage. I don't know if mom want me to tell you that now, but she knows, and so does your dad. And so it was you just became interested. And then when you became interested in my book, my heart just flooded with joy. But but
Oh,
how I was selected, I know there was a committee, and they go by hours, and sometimes there are people who leave comments about their visit, and then they will mention names. I got a lot of names. I got a lot of comments from people who have visited the library. Plus, I just love to talk.
yeah. I think that it's really cool. I think when I met you, you were just very very kind and approachable, and I think others also see that. So yeah.
I think, uh, you know, I believe that my life growing up in the Delta,
Mm-hmm.
those photos you saw,
Yes.
that was because of my life. I didn't know where I was going, but I do know this. I had to get out of that. I was
Yes.
not going to work on anybody's farm for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were very influential.
That I know. You wrote a book about that.
Oh, you read it, some of them. All
Hmm.
right. Ooh, you just making my heart just flutter all over the place.
So you said that you met the president. What was he like?
President Bill Clinton is approachable, but it depends on the environment. I only met him only at the library, and I see him every year because he comes uh, every year for the volunteer because he
Mhm.
present the volunteer award. But he didn't present it to me because he had just returned from England doing a eulogy, and he caught COVID, so he had to uh, self quarantine, and I'm the only volunteer that didn't get a chance to shake his hand. But
Aw.
I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for November. We're going to have a great celebration because this is the 18th year, and and the people are anticipating because we didn't see him last year. But I got to tell you, Elena, President Clinton comes to this library at least once or twice a month. Uh,
Mm.
he really does. He come back for various reasons. For an example, he may come back for a fundraiser, or he may come back for a eulogy, or he come back for a program, or he give a speech to his students at the University of Arkansas Clinton School for Public Service. It could be any reason, uh, and and he introduced new exhibits. Like I believe when you were there, we had the dinosaurs. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the dinosaurs are leaving uh, at the end of this month,
Uh,
and I don't know what the new exhibit would be, but whatever the selections, he will return and introduce it because he would invite all of his donors. He'll come back and meet his donors, yes, uh, and he would come back to go and return to talk with the people who are members of the uh, Clinton foundations as well.
that is really cool. So let's talk about your book. What inspired you to write a book about your childhood, and why did you name it after your parents?
Well, first I'll tell you about them. My parents had two different mindsets on raising their family, but the bottom line is education. We definitely had to get our education. I wrote this book. It started out as a journal. I have my journal, and during COVID, I wrote so much. I decided just get on the typewriter, well, my computer. Excuse excuse the old school, old vintage, okay, typewriter. So this is how I type, young lady. This is my space bar. And I'm looking down at the keys. And after I've written so much and I can see those red lines and blue lines, I went back to straighten them out. I wasn't ready to do any grammatical correction just to make it, just get rid of those lines because they look so bad. And I was inspired to write after I read what I had written. I said, this is a book. So I put it together and just start typing about my mom and my dad. My father is very influential upon me. In fact, he was influential on all five of his sons because he taught us how to be men, how to work, how to be respectful,
Mm-hmm.
how to treat our how especially treat our wives and our children. And you may notice in my book I did talk about his dad leaving
Mm-hmm.
when he was like sixth grade, something like that. That's what that's his school ended as a sixth grader because he was the only boy in the family of four sisters, and he had to go out and work, and that was during the Depression years.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother is influential in terms of how to serve people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the reasons why volunteers stuck with me because I ran around with my mother as a little boy, how she was helping people because my mother didn't have to do any. She didn't be, because of that time and the segregation. Mom customers start coming to her like Thursday evening through Saturday night and end up early Saturday mornings. So Monday through Wednesday, that's where she did a lot of serving and driving people to their appointment, helping senior citizen. And I was with her, and that stuck with me for a lifetime, and it still is. I still volunteer, but I aspired to write that book because of them. And plus
Mm-hmm.
the fact, my siblings, you see all those photos, you see
Yeah.
those kids, you know, number one, we're bare feet, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and shirtless. Well, we wore shoes only to church and school. During the summer, we were bare feet, and the shirts. You know, you don't want to wear the shirts out, but you can wear them jeans every day, and you wash them once a week. I'm not talking about no. I'm not talking about a washing machine.
Yeah.
We're talking about that washboard. I had to do that, young lady, until mom and dad bought an electric washing machine. And I wrote that book because I worked with my siblings. They were, even though I was tall, but there was just a year that separate a lot of us, 2 years, and so forth and so on. It was fun writing that book. I wanted my grandchildren to read to see where they came from,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the information about that time period I left out because I didn't want them to read about that.
Yeah.
I wanted them to see how to pull your bootstrap up, get down into the nitty gritty of education, and that's what my parents did, and they did it admirably and did a good job. Out of all of nine of us, there are three of us with doctors, and which means six of us had have our masters. I didn't do a doctoral. I stopped.
Mm.
Yes, but my daughter made up for me. She was one of the forward writers.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Well, so your book is has a lot to do about your childhood. So out of all of your childhood memories, which one has kind of shaped you into the person you are today?
Oh, I saw that question, and I said, "What? What comes to mind?" Well, it's more than one, but I can tell you this: working with my siblings had a lot to do to shape me as a person as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Because while mom and dad were working, I had to watch them. Uh, I did prepare a little snacks and meal. My great grandmother taught me how to uh, uh, fry, uh, make oatmeal.
Mm-hmm.
She had a little container, put this much in water in, and put this much oatmeal and this amount of sugar, because sugar and butter. We ate a lot of that. it was called it was called commodity food, but basically it was just welfare food.
Mm.
That's all it was, just welfare food. But we called it commodity food, and we obviously qualified for that. The other thing that really shaped me was that type of living. I really hated that sharecrop farm life. I
Mm-hmm.
really did, and it shaped me as I got older, becoming an adolescent. There's a lot of things that I didn't do that a lot of teenagers did at that time. I stayed busy because I knew that a lot of idle time, the way I felt about that community, I didn't like neither one of the communities. I didn't like the black community. I didn't like the white community, and that really shaped me. But it also helped improve my quality of living as I am today because of that. Yes, it was a big influence. I had the wrong thoughts, the wrong ideals, but
Mm-hmm.
life can teach you a valuable lesson as you mature. And that is what my parents did. They kept me on solid ground. And that's why I call it Lewis and Lily, because they met.
Mm-hmm. That is very interesting to hear, and yeah, it's very cool to see how like your parents have influenced you and helped shape you into who you are today. Um, so I what I really liked about your book is how you described like art and music. So can you reiterate what you said about that in your book?
Okay. It all started with Mrs. Brown. I was a seventh grader. At that time, I was beginning to like school and education. Mrs. Brown was a veteran of World War II, WAC, West Women Army Corps. They were known as WAC. And
Mm.
with all her travels, I listened to her, and it was amazing. And I began to feel good about myself. I only knew rock and roll. At that time, it was called the devil music. And so she had classic. I started listening to classic music. She just had me sit down and just listen, and I started to develop a likeness for it,
Mm-hmm.
appreciation for it. Then jazz, uh, along with what we call easy listening music, talking about the Burt Bacharach, Dionne Warwick type. Not that boom, 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 bah, boom, 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 boom. There's a place for that. Believe me, I did do all that dance. I loved it. But then she had a good collection of art. And I started looking at the art on the album covers. I buy the vinyls. And they told a story.
Mm-hmm.
I have all of this work. I have over 500 albums. I have the first album I bought in '66. I still have that same album. One day I'm gonna get my grands to come over here, and they're gonna show me how to look up the values of these albums. I really did. I really love them, and they tell a story, especially in the '60s. That was my teenage year and the beginning of my early young adult.
Mm-hmm.
They told stories, the protest years,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam War years. Those were the things that really shaped me. My art, the artwork. You go back and look at the art. You know, I hadn't always been like this. I had a beautiful afro, and as Mother Nature allowed me to age, it started dissipating, getting away from me. But those afros told a story.
Mm-hmm.
Those haircut styles in the '60s, when Muhammad Ali came on the scene, we didn't know anything. The only thing we knew about Muslim is that people were saying that it's evil. We
Uh-huh.
didn't know anything. We were naive. We were ignorant of the fact. And then he came on the scene and changed his name to Muhammad Ali. That was very influential as well. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of stories about those. I could go on and on, but I'm gonna stop right here because I don't know how much time you have.
Yeah, I love music and art too. And I also agree when you said like, they tell a story and yeah. Um, so just a couple more questions.
Okay.
So, you talked about how your parents influenced you. When I was reading your book, I also read about how like coaches and teachers influence you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yes. Let me start. Now, Mrs. Brown was the biggest influencer on my life.
Mm-hmm.
One thing during that time period, we had to pay for when you became a ninth grader, ninth through 12th, you had fees to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And she took care of a lot of my fees for me. Uh, when Miss Louise Horse, my fourth grade teacher, she lived across the street from me as well, the same house that Mrs. Brown eventually moved into. Well, she would sit me down in her house and tell me to read out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And after I mowed her lawn, and she served me some lemonade, a little Coke or something to drink, and read the book. And I read the book. I fell in love with reading, and I still do. Um, Coach Chandler
Mm-hmm.
was a big influence in my life in terms of athletics. Um, I became interested in running the half mile, which was called the 880 run. It's now called the 800 meters.
Yes, yeah, I run that too.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, that's a beautiful race, a run. Uh, the '60s start changing. A lot of African Americans were not running 800 and the mile. We were in the sprint, and then all of a sudden, when African Americans started running, and then the Africans would come would compete in the 800, and they started coming to America, especially the HBCUs. That thing became almost a sprint. And as you can tell, as you know now, you run that, you got to you got to have good strength, good muscles, your legs, and you got to have the speed. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you do any weight or not, but uh, as an 8'8" runner, you got to have your muscles got to be really toned.
Mm-hmm.
So much for that. But anyway, Coach Chandler got me to start running because I was not a sprinter, and that's what got me in college. The 880 run. Now I was not an outstanding, runner. I brought in points, and I always got my award. but you always got stars, and you always got those who help the stars to become stars. I
Yeah.
love running. I did. And as a result of that, running, it got me into officiating, refereeing basketball games.
Hmm.
And, because I had to stay in shape. So I just started going to the boys' club, recreation center, and refereeing. And next thing I knew, I got pretty good at that.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear how like Coach Chandler kind of helped you get into college and also helped you like become a referee kind of. So,
It is.
yeah, it's been nice talking to you. I think we're going to stop it there. It was a really enjoyable conversation. And yeah, thank you for people who are watching. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I don't know. I don't know your aspiration, but I tell you what, I would really be interested in, just like I'm watching my granddaughters right now. They all of them are in college, and and I want to know what you're doing and how you're coming along, because this is really good and this is really interesting. I I I do want to ask, are you aspiring? I know, to go into college.
Yes.
Okay, and of course you have what, like 3 or 4 more years remaining before you graduate from high school, huh?
I'm a sophomore now.
Oh, okay. You're a precocious sophomore. I, I bet when there's discussions going on, I love to hear you discussing and wow and wooing your instructors and your classmates. Uh, which you have a major in mind, or is that special
um,
studies?
Possibly English, literature, something in that realm, creative writing, maybe.
Okay, going and be an editor. That's what you're going to do. You're going to be a writer.
Mhm.
You are going to be a writer. Or, well, that's good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you
And
for agreeing to do this.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Now you made